hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. This is my April wrap up of all the books I read in the month of April. So yeah, I read 12 books, which came out to 2,021 pages and also 31.68 hours of audiobook listening to. I read 7 physical books, 3 ebooks and 2 audiobooks. So I started the month off with Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Sutanto, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I think I'm going to give it about a 4-star rating. We're basically following this elderly Chinese woman. She's living in San Francisco. She owns a tea shop. She's called Vera Wong. It's sort of just like such a character. I absolutely love her. She does things that are like good, like questions, but at the same time she's just so like pure, and yeah, I just really loved her and you know who she was. But she comes down one morning and she finds this dead body, the person is called Marshall, by the way, and in her tea shop, and she's like, okay. So she calls the police and stuff, and there's like an investigation, but she's also like trying to do the investigating herself because she doesn't feel like the police are doing it like adequately. So she meets people that are like in Marshall's life in a way, his twin brother Oliver, and also his wife Julia. But then there's also these 2 characters. There's Sana. She is an artist, but she's also a podcaster. And Ricky, who I don't fully know what he was or is, like what his job title is, but he is a journalist. And we're sort of like getting more of the backstory about who these people are and their relationship with Marshall, and sort of like, is his death a murder, is it an accident, is it just like an overdose or something, on like things like that. And yeah, I thought it was fun. It was very like quick, fast paced. The ending, I probably would have done something different. I get why it was done, but personally I would have preferred something else or something, but I don't really want to spoil anything, but that's just my personal opinion. But it was still good in a way, and it was just a little bit rushed maybe towards the end as well, but yeah. I also did quite like the way Sutanto talks about sort of like the place of women and what women sometimes have to give up or not pursue any longer for the sake of starting a family or like keeping a marriage, and this sort of like scenario, and also someone coming to terms with the fact that they was in quite an emotionally abusive relationship and environment. And yeah, I thought it was good and enjoyable, and I would definitely recommend and would definitely read something else by Jessie Sutanto. It just felt like quite like an easy read, and I needed that, so yep. Then I read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This is one of my 24 of 2024, so I'm happy I got one of them read. Basically following David. He's an American in 1950s Paris. His fiance, I want to say, I think she's called Helen or like Helena, I'm not 100% sure, I can't really remember now, but she goes off to Spain for like quite a few months, and then he starts a relationship with this younger Italian barman called Giovanni. And we sort of get a bit of backstory about like who they are and this sort of like dynamic and the time and different characters as well, and it's told from like the future in a way, looking back at these events, and what led up to sort of like a big like thing that's happening at the moment. And yeah, I think the writing is really good. It is really beautiful. I like annotated this copy, which my friend got me, so I'm gonna keep it with like stars and stuff, with the like nice quotes, which there are quite a lot of. I thought this was gonna be like a 5-star jazz hand, sort of like creme de la creme sort of read, but it wasn't. I think I'm gonna end up giving this about a 3.5-star rating. I think what Baldwin does well is the fact that like obviously it was written in the 50s and it's set in the 50s and it's obviously of its time, and it talks about this sort of like doomed queer love, and I love stories like that. But I have read better iterations of it, like my favourite book ever, Lie With Me by Philippe Besson, also similarly Swimming in the Dark by Thomas Jodorowsky, a more historical one, Lovers by Daniel Arsand, and even like All Men Want to Know by Nina Burri. They have all been better, and I get that some of them may have and probably were influenced by this book as much of quite a few other queer books have been, but that doesn't mean I have to like it more. But yeah, also there is just quite a lot of untranslated French, which I obviously don't understand, which is a little bit frustrating, when there's like things that you literally just can't like understand what they're talking about, or like what is fully going on. It's not excessive, but there is enough for me to make a comment on it. Also there's quite a few like long-winded sentences and stuff that go on, and you can't fully understand what he's trying to pinpoint and say. And also misogyny, which I don't like. It's okay if your book has misogyny in it, or like fat phobia or racism or something, if it is addressed well, but in here it's not. And there's a specifically part where like they're both like, I think Giovanni says something, and then like they sort of like both laugh about it, and that just bit just really like infuriates me. I'm just like, why? Like, this is not funny. This is like, this is not right. And yeah, it just annoyed me, that because it could have been addressed and this would have made it a better book in my opinion, and just things like that does bring it down. But yeah, I don't know, it's quite a lot to ponder on. I'm definitely going to give this a reread, probably not anytime soon, but I feel like there is probably more I can get out of it, and I'm definitely not going to stop reading books by him. I do want to continue, but yeah, this just wasn't what I wanted, and I would recommend it, but at the same time, like I've already mentioned, there are better iterations of a similar story arc of this. I then read Game On by Matt Cain. This literally just like came out this month, and then I think like maybe a day or two after, I was just like, you know what, F it, I'm gonna read it because I want to read. I am literally just like addicted to his books and his writing. It's just so good. I think I'm going to give this about a 4.5 star rating because it is super short. Also like the writing is quite big as well, so you don't fully get to be immersed in his characters and his world, which is they're all set in reality anyway, like his other books do, but at the same time he just addresses a lot in this for its small length. At the heart of it is a sort of hate to love-ish relationship between a Premier League footballer called Tom, and a journalist called Cosmo, and they sort of, Cosmo is sent to do a sort of like report on, I think it's something about sort of like the Rainbow Laces campaign or something similar to that, like about like a queer campaign that to do with Premier League football, and they sort of like don't like each other because Cosmo is like, all like Premier League footballers and stuff, like there's no like gay like icons of people to look up to, but there must be one somewhere. And Tom is sort of like a southerner, sort of like trying to like butt in, and sort of like he can't really understand the position he's in. He also has a young daughter, and yeah, but then sort of like a relationship does like blossom between them, because I don't know if it's a spoiler, but like, I mean, it's a bit obvious in a way, but yeah, but he also talks about quite a lot more, obviously, about sort of like queer people in like men's sports, specifically football, but also like Tom's daughter, I think she likes doing rugby. It also talks about sort of like the women's game as well, which I absolutely adore. I love women's football, and yeah, just like quite a few other things as well, and it's just really cute. Also, like, there's just so much relatability and so much realism within his books that I just always feel like they toe this line of like even making me wanting to like burst out crying, because I'm just like, oh, I'm just like not necessarily sad, but like I just it just makes me feel emotional. Also, I just want to start just like laughing because it is funny. And yeah, I love Matt Cain. I love his books so much. So yeah, I'm happy I read that. Then read Bingo Love by T. Franklin, who I believe does the like writing and the concept. Jen St. Onge and Joy San. I believe they do like the artwork and the colouring. We're following these two black lesbian women, Hazel and Mary. They first meet as sort of like teenagers in the 60s and start a sort of like relationship, but because of their family and like the time, it's like can't be pursued any longer, and then they meet up a bit later, like quite a few years later, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. I did enjoy this, and I did think it's like quite different in a way, and I did like sort of what they were doing in it, I guess, and these characters, and I just wanted to like know more about them, this sort of like black lesbian story, and the artwork was nice. I just have an issue with sort of like the execution and like the time span and time jumps in a way. Also the dialogue felt quite unrealistic, and just on the whole the execution was a bit jagged and didn't really flow very well, whereas the concept I thought was very good, but it just wasn't really portrayed that well in a way. And yeah, I think it's a part of a series. I'm probably not going to continue it, but yeah, I think I'm going to give it about a 3-star rating, which is quite a shame, to be honest, because I do think it had a lot of potential, but I just didn't really wholly enjoy it. So yep. Then I read either the best or second best of the year, a book that is just so exceptional, another one of my 2024, and that is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is just exquisite. It is beautiful. It reads like poetry, because Vuong is a poet. It is just so great. I would recommend this to everybody, but check trigger warnings as well. But this is a letter from a character called Little Dog, who is I want to say he's like 20 something, young man, and he is writing a letter to his mother, who does not understand or speak English, so she's not going to be able to read it. And he talks about so much stuff, but just like at the heart of it is sort of like what it is living in his body as like a queer Vietnamese man in contemporary America. We sort of about his past and sort of like the relationship with his mother and grandmother, in sort of like, I can't remember where they were. I think it's like Hartford, like not Massachusetts, like Connecticut, I think, but it's like New England sort of area, and sort of like child abuse and domestic abuse, and also this sort of like multi-generational like trauma in a way, because they are Vietnamese, and about sort of like the Vietnam War, and because his mother and grandmother were alive like then, and sort of like their journey, also him sort of like in his like relationship with another young man, and about sort of like the opioid crisis in America. And I feel like it really paints the destructive and horrible nature of that crisis, and yeah, it just made me so emotional. Like you can see my eyes are glaring up. Yeah, I did cry at this book. It's just so sad, and it just makes you angry as well, like knowing, like it talks about like not that much in it, it's sort of about like the prescribing of medication, opioid medication, for sort of like little things like as a painkiller, and how this leads to addiction, and yeah, it was really sad, and a lot of the things in this book are like really harrowing and sad, emotional. but the writing is just so beautiful. Like, once again, I like underlined and like starred things and stuff. Let me quickly find a bit in here that was just like beautiful. I just had to step back and just be like, oh, what? Wow. So let me find that. Page 130. It's the bit when he's telling about how he sort of like came out to his mum. And he said, I didn't want to use the Vietnamese word for it, pede. My pronunciation is probably wrong. From the French pede, short for pedestrate. Before the French occupation, our Vietnamese did not have a name for queer bodies because they were seen, like all bodies, fleshed and of one source. I didn't want to introduce this part of me using the epitaph for criminals. Can you see? Goosebumps. His words just are so exceptionally beautiful and razor sharp and just pinpoint exactly what he's trying to say. And yeah, they're not going to go down anytime soon, probably. Million billion % recommend this. Easy 5-star. Just so good, and I cannot wait to read more by him. I have his other 2 poetry collections, but like, if you want to write another book, I'd like that very much. Thank you. After that, I thought I wanted just sort of like a easier read, so I thought I'd go with The First Move by Jenny Ireland. I found this as an audiobook through BorrowBox. It's following these 2 characters, so it's dual POV and it flips between them. The first is Juliet, and she has quite like a rare and like debilitating form of arthritis, and it's sort of like the start of school year. I think it's their final year of like high school in Ireland. I'm not 100% sure, but she's like 17 and she turns 18, and she has to go in with like crutches, which she like really doesn't want to do, but she has to because of her condition. Then there's also Ronan, who is coming to start like that term from a different school, and he just sort of like seems like quite nonchalant. He just sort of is just like brazing through. He's sort of like quite like good looking and like popular, and she just feels like, oh, he's just gonna get whatever he wants and just another like whatever. Also at the same time, she's like, because her friend is like fancying him, like quite a few, also her like her 2 friends, a boy and a girl, so there was a queer act which I enjoyed. And she's like, oh well, he's never like gonna like me because like, look at me, I have crutches, and like he's like beautiful and popular and stuff. But he also does have his own sort of like baggage in a way, and something like that happened like not that long ago is still sort of like plaguing him in like his family life. And yeah, both of them sort of like playing chess, and it ends up that they've been talking to and playing with this, like each other, but like that's not known to them. And yeah, so it's sort of like a contemporary, it's young adult, and it's sort of like a romance as well, mostly. And yeah, I also did sort of like the way it talked about sort of like ableism and sort of mental health and also drug addiction in some sense, and grief, and yeah, I just thought it was done quite well. It's also quite cute as well. Like, you just sort of like these characters and you want them to, you know, get what they want from this situation. Yeah, but also I feel like as the book went on, it sort of felt a little bit juvenile, and there's quite a bit of like miscommunication, and a bit petty some things as well, which I wasn't that big of a fan of. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give this about a 3.5-star rating. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. That's what I really have to say about it. Would recommend. I then read The Power by Naomi Alderman, just whilst they were in my mind because I'm going to forget the names. This is following mostly 4 characters, Roxy, Ali, Tunde and Margot. Sort of like a speculative fiction book, but like in a world not like ours, because it's like in the future someone has written a book about the events or like their view of what had happened before in the past. And am I making sense? It's not making sense to me. I'm just going to stop right off my head, even though I'm not. But that is basically what it is. It's all a little bit dystopia-y, a bit, you know, sci-fi-y. But basically, there's like this one day where there is 14 to like 15-ish year-old girls. They understand and learn that they have this ability to sort of like send sort of like electric like sort of through their fingers and inflict pain on people. And then just like how this revelation, you know, impacts the world and society. It's not the men that have the like advantage, because women now have the power, and it's sort of just like the changing gradual dynamics of sort of like the political power and sort of like that form of influence changing into the hands of women, and sort of like laws. There's a lot to unpack. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think I'm going to give it about a 4 or 4.25 star rating. It's a little bit hard for me to fully ponder my thoughts, because I feel like I need to maybe give this a reread. Yeah, like I said, there was a lot to it. I definitely enjoyed it, and it's like, it's quite easy to read because it pulls you forward, but at the same time it is also like the events are quite triggering, but I did really like the way sort of like it puts like the, what's the term, it's like the shoe on the other foot or something, about how, and it shows the stupidity of like gender discrimination and like misogyny and you know, things like that, because it's like, it's the male version, and like men are like afraid, and men are being like attacked and assaulted. What it basically is that this guy has written a book and he's asked Naomi to read it and give her thoughts on it, and at the end she says, "Neil, I think this might be very distasteful to you, but have you considered publishing this book under a woman's name?" And I just thought that bit really like sums up sort of like the way it addresses sort of like the indifference between women and men in a way in the book. I don't know, would recommend this, definitely. I feel like when I fully ponder my thoughts and write a review, it'll be more eloquent, hopefully, but we shall see. Then I read All the Violet Tiaras, Queering the Greek Myths by Jean Menzies. I found this because Jean does sort of like TikToks about like Greek myths, and I really enjoyed them, and I thought I'd pick this up. This is sort of like split into 3 chapters, called New Stories from the in an Ancient Form, Still Relevant and Requeering the Greek Myths, and he just talks about different sort of like works of like literature. He gives lots of recommendations, and it talks about different like queer people and queer relationships from the Greek myths, and how they are sort of like being adapted into a more modern form as well. And yeah, I thought it was really good. It was well done, did what it set out to do really well. It's very short, so it's not that much which is like explored, but for what it does do well, and it keeps me engaged. And yeah, I would recommend this. I think maybe about a 4.5 star rating. I would definitely want to check out some of the works she talks about in this, so yay. Then I read my second 5-star of the month, so I'm really happy about that, because I've been having sort of a little bit of a dry patch with 5-star reads, but that is Glitter Boy by Ian Eagleton. I love this so much. Oh my god, I absolutely adore this book. It is a middle grade, it's following James. I think he's like 11. It starts at the new term. He just likes dancing, he likes listening to Mariah Carey, he wants eventually to like write music with and for her, and yeah, he's just such a lovely little boy. He just radiates joy. But there's 3 problems. Number 1, his new teacher, Mr. Hamilton, is going to be having a gay wedding, but his dad won't let him go. 2, his nan has been having falls and she's quite frail, and their relationship, which is beautiful by the way, is possibly like in the balance. And 3, there's this nasty boy called Paul at school, and he keeps bullying him and calling him that word. And it's sort of like how he is addressing this with his friends Harriet and Joel, addresses sort of like bullying so well, in the way that like these little things just like build up and up and up. And it's really, really hard and very sad at times as well, because he just wants to, you know, live his life. He just wants to, you know, have fun. He wants to do his work and just, you know, be himself, but he's not allowed to because of this bullying, and also like other things going on in his mind and things. And he does like some things that like you're questionable, but you have to understand, like, you know, he's 11, he's going through like these tough things. Yeah, I thought it was done so well. Also, the teacher asked them to do like a project about sort of like people from history, and he gets to do on Marsha P. Johnson, and it also talks quite a bit about sort of like these queer people from history and these vanguards and trailblazers, and even like all the loads of work they've done to make the world a better place. There is still, you know, injustice and discrimination and bullying, even in this classroom with a gay teacher, which wouldn't have been possible like a couple years back, sort of like with like Section 28 and things. And yeah, I think it addresses these so well. There's so much like relatability with him, and he's just such a lovely character. It definitely gives me vibes similar to The Madonna of Bolton by Matt Cain, which is my favourite book of last year. In that, it's following a boy. I think he goes from like 7 to 30ish, and he is like obsessed with Madonna, and also deals with sort of like bullying in a similar way, and also has a teacher that can't explore his, you know, queer identity because of the time it was set, and just a lot of like similar things in those books that I just absolutely adored. So yeah, it definitely gave me that sort of like vibe, like they were sort of like sisters, not twins, but just, you know, cut from the same cloth in a sense. But yeah, absolutely adored this, would 100% recommend this, even, you know, for adults, but especially for children. It's just great to have this representation, yeah, I'm really happy I read this, so yay. Then I read One Last Song by Nathan Evans. I got it as a recommendation from Matt Cain, in that he posted a Instagram about it, so I was like, you're coming home with me, so I thought I'd get this. It's basically following these two older men in a sort of like care home, Joan and Jim. And Joan sort of like recently moves in, and he is sort of like two like old queer men on different like sides, in that Joan is quite like flamboyant, it's very like assured of himself. He's sort of like an old queen in a way, and Jim is much more reserved and sort of like hidden in a way parts of himself for many years, because obviously they've lived through many decades of changing societal views of queer people. They're both sort of like a little bit hate to love, but then their romance blossoms. It also like talks about sort of like their past, and sort of like still fighting for certain things in a way, and yeah, just quite a lot. And yeah, I did enjoy this. I think maybe about a 4-star rating. And yeah, it was like a nice fun read, and it's just like quite like just sweet to see these older guys just, you know, living like their life still, and they like there is talks about like dementia and sort of like grief and you know, things that they're facing, but it's done in a good way, And yeah, I would recommend this, and I did enjoy it, and I would like to maybe read something else by Nathan Evans. Finally, to end the year, I read the last 2 volumes, volume 3 and 4 of Boys Run the Riot, by K2 Gaku. This is translated from Japanese by Leo McDonough. Both McDonough and Gaku are trans men themselves, and this is still following Rio, who is a trans boy, and the brand is created with Jin and Itsuka, and it follows on from like this revelation in volume 2, which I was like, I'm sorry, what? But that, and sort of like how it impacts Rio, and also we're getting sort of a little bit of like backstory and talk with Tsubasa, who is the like YouTuber who they sort of like did a collab with, and their gender identity and sexuality. And yeah, I thought that was a good volume. I think that one may be about a 4 stars. And then the 4th volume, the final one, was they meet this other character called Jono or Joe, and he sort of like mentors them in sort of like trying to pinpoint really what their brand is and what they want to say and how they're going to move on with it. And I thought that one was done very well. It just sort of like it leaves us a little bit upended, but at the same time, even though they might not be, you know, really successful or whatever, they're just, you know, doing what they want to do, and they're following like a passion, and I thought it was just done very well. And yeah, I like the characters. We also get sort of like a bit of like Jin sort of like relationship with his dad, and also yeah, Rio comes out in this episode as well to his family, and his brother now, I think, handled it very well. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I think maybe this one about a 4.25 star rating. So overall, I think this series gets about a 4.25, which is good. There's also a little short at the end of this, which was a manga that Gaku created before Boys Run Riot, with elements from that was in the later series. I did think that was done quite well as well. It was a little bit, you know, upsetting, but good, I feel. And yeah, I would recommend the series, and I'm happy that I completed it now, so yay. Anyway, that is all the books I read in April. Hope you enjoyed this video. I got some recommendations, and I have a nice morning, even wherever you are in the world, and I shall see you soon. Bye.